We do this every time we have a PPS meeting because we want to be really clear about who we are and what our boundaries are. So PPS is a volunteer-supported 501c3 organization. We suggest a donation to help cover the cost of the event and support future events. Although no one's turned away, your donations are appreciated. We're accepting donations at our website, portlandpsychedelicsociety.org, and just click the Donate Now button if you'd like to donate. Please refrain from solicitation and illegal activities at PPS events. Our events are about learning, sharing, education, and harm reduction. What you hear tonight is not to be regarded as medical advice. This is a place for members of the community to share experiences and information. That's it. So what we'd like to do now is just have each of our audience members just to do a little brief, this is who I am and this is where I am. And if you're an artist, what kind of art you do, that would be nice to hear. So as Holly said, she and I are the co-hostesses of the Psychedelic Artist Salon. So we'll start with me and then Holly and then the others, and then our artists can, they'll do their introductions separately. But my name is Peggy Parks and I am on the Portland Psychedelic Society board. And I am also an artist and a photographer and other arts as well. And I have done a presentation here as part of the Artist Salon, and it's really a lot of fun. So I encourage other people to do it as well. So Holly.
Hello, I am Holly, and I'm a member of Portland Psychedelic Society and have been since I guess 2018. Used to be on the board, not anymore. I am an artist, primarily a writer, taught in higher ed for 15 years, but I have my fingers in all kinds of pies. So I also like photography and dance and singing and just things to keep my mind busy. And I love this meetup because I love meeting all of you fascinating people, and I'm glad you're all here. And I'm going to pass it on. Why don't we popcorn? I'll pass it to somebody. Y'all introduce yourselves, and then you pass it on to someone else. And I'm going to go with Sorry.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sari. I'm a member of the PPS. That's okay. Don't be sorry. Family. I do the meetup calendar and the events, and this is the first time I've been on this group, which I'm really excited about. I am an artist as well. I've been painting for over 20 years. I'm also a writer and a philosopher, and a lot of my work has to do with, you know, the basics of like philosophy and the spirit molecule is kind of a great way to kind of like approach that one and in what we are in our existential crisis, right? So I'm definitely excited to kind of see where this group goes and be a part of the future.
Thank you, sorry. And then you can popcorn the next person.
I pick Kazzrie.
Hello, I'm Kazzrie. I am an eclectic channel and a psychedelic guide. And I'm also a volunteer helping out with Zoom recordings, and I come to pretty much all of the Zooms anymore. Looking forward to seeing what people have to offer. I'm very much a fan of art of all sorts of kinds. So I'm going to pass it on to Bob.
I'm Jane. Actually, this is my husband's computer because mine got infected and I can't use it right now. I am a decades-long friend of Peggy and Steve. So I love following their progress and all their activities and what I'm excited about what Steve's going to present tonight. He's many talented, and this is one of his new. This is one of his new talents that I'm excited about, and I'm looking forward to hearing it.
And I also want to add in there that she didn't mention this, but she is also a very talented artist of paintings. So Jane, you want to select the next person?
Kiara?
Hi, everybody. I'm Kiara.
Hi, everybody.
And I definitely have enjoyed the events that Portland Psychedelic Society has offered. There's a lot of great learning opportunities, and I really appreciate art, and I'm excited to see what's happening this evening. So thank you for allowing me to come into your circle.
Welcome, we're glad you're here.
Thank you, and I'll pass it on to Jason Stewart.
My name is Jason. As it shows, I'm a longtime artist. Someone had told me about this group and thought I would enjoy it. I make organic, surreal type art, and I don't know, it just sounded like an interesting thing to add to my experience, to listen and take on new perspectives from people. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you.
Let's do Drew Turner.
Hi, everyone. So I am not an artist. Peggy and Steve are my parents. And knowing that my dad was speaking tonight, I set my alarm and made sure that I was on it.
Welcome, Drew.
All right, then we're going to do Mary's iPhone.
Hi there. This is Steve's little sister and Drew's aunt, and I'm just joining in.
Glad you made it, Mary.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. And I'll choose Heather.
Heather said that she had an issue with her mic, but I will read what she wrote. She said, I'm having an issue with my mic, and she's interested in the group, and she is a grant writer for a living. And Heather, we could use your expertise with grant writing for PPS if you're interested in volunteering that. And we're glad you're here.
I'm Jason. I've been a longtime volunteer with the Psychedelic Society, and many of the roles that people have talked about that they're stepping into tonight, I've been the one kind of doing that for the most part the last couple of years. So I am really happy to be on this one. I really enjoy seeing the artists and what they have, and having time to just get deep into it. So that is why I am here, is just to, I like to just spectate on these. But I always have a lot of good questions. I've seen Holly and Peggy's art, and I'm glad it is Steve's turn, because every time I get to know something about Steve, I like him more, but I don't get to learn new things about Steve too often.
Glad you're here, Jason.
So I'm Alice, and I'm from the Bay Area, and my art is knitting and photography.
First time joining in, and I'm not sure, so it's related to art tonight? Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So someone else go first, because I'm brand new. So.
Well, welcome.
Welcome, Kathy.
We're glad you're here. And this is a psychedelic artist salon, and we have two guest artists tonight that are going to be presenting. So you were our last person to come onto the call, and the last person who was able to introduce themselves. So why don't we just jump right into it? We've got two artists presenting tonight, Steve and Chris, who is going as Polygon Rainbow. And Steve volunteered to go first. So go for it, Steve.
Okay. Well, hi, everybody. Thanks again to Holly and Peggy for inviting me and for hosting this event. Enjoyed the artwork in your previous salon, singular, I think, isn't it? Salon. And I'm looking forward to what here Chris talked about his art as well. So my art is wood carving. And what I thought I'd do is show you a few pieces that I've completed recently, and tell you a bit about my process and how I stir psychedelics into the mix. Now, my dad was a carver for years, and I spent a lot of time with his creations, often animals, but also stylized and whimsical or mythical figures. I think I probably began carving 15 years ago, but sort of following in his footsteps. But kids and life and working seemed to fill up the days, so there wasn't much carving going on until Peggy and I moved up here to Portland with a bit more time on our hands, and I began carving again. In the past, I'd carve variations of artwork I'd seen, like my dad's, and stylized animal figures. The pieces I do now are sometimes animals, but also stylized human forms and faces and figures. A couple of years ago, right after we moved up here, I was in a bar downtown, and I saw this art piece, and I really liked its whimsy and its simplicity, and it seemed to capture my love for procrastination. So I carved this piece that I'm going to show you, and this was the first carving I'd done in a couple of years. Okay. So this is my guy that I saw in the bar downtown. And I was saying, as I was saying, this is probably 14 inches high, made out of basswood. And then I sort of continued in that theme of, I was going to say human faces, but that's not really a human face. Let me see if I can find this other one, which is also a video, but okay. So another faces, let's say. This was, I saw a piece similar to this on the internet, and so I did my variation on it. This is, this wood is butternut, and which I really think it has an interesting grain there that I think you can see in that picture. And also, this sort of led to my first commission. A friend of ours saw it, and she wanted me to do a similar piece for her to give to her husband for their anniversary. So that was nice. Now I've let's see if I can do this again. I branched out from the human form a little bit, and I've done a couple pieces. Let me see if I can. So, stylized human form, and again, this is basswood, and this is again about 14 inches tall. Let's have another similar piece, and let's see. Okay. So this is another stylized torso. Like this is from a piece of myrtle wood, Oregon myrtle wood that my dad had and I inherited, and the bottom of it was sort of a rough, not cut, but had the bark and the knots and stuff in it, and I decided to just keep that as part of the piece, and have the image, the figure coming out of it, and this is sort of a departure from what my dad did. I don't remember him doing pieces like that, but that's probably because he had a bunch of grandkids, and trying to explain what this was would be a little more difficult. It's not a rabbit or something. Now while it's fun doing the finished pieces, really enjoy the process as well. So I think that's why it often takes me a month or more to finish a piece. I'm not really in a hurry. Maybe that gets back to the procrastination thing. So let me tell you a little bit about the way I work. I have a workbench, and I think you saw a picture of it there. Let me see if I can get back to it. Maybe if we just go here. Oops, there it was. Okay, this is again something I inherited from my dad. It's a workbench. And the important part of this is the vise here. And as you probably noticed, the pieces that I've showed you so far, they look like they're sitting on a pedestal, which, you know, I like the way the base looks, but this vise is also handy to hold the piece, because the way I work is with a chisel and a mallet, which is definitely a two-handed operation, so I have to have something to hold on to the piece while I'm whacking at it. You saw there some of the, these are finishing tools when I got down to the detail. Use these guys. And the final finishing is, you know, of course, sandpapering. This is, you know, pretty rough sandpaper, and it gets to really fine. This piece here is so fine it feels like a piece of cloth, actually. I don't use any power tools, and it's not just because I don't want to cut off a finger, but like I said, you know, I'm really not in a hurry, and I enjoy the process. Now I think I'm pretty much left brain, you know, analytic and logical, and so when I work on a piece, I look at it analytically and logically, and I usually make a detailed scaled drawing before I start carving, something like this. You know, these are a couple drawings I did before I start the carving. You know, this is the size of the block of the wood I may be starting with, and it has a grid on here, so I know where to start cutting away the wood before I get down to where the fox actually is. You know, this negative space here, I can just start whacking that out. And then when I get to the down to the detail, and I'm finalizing the lines and you know, the shape, that's when I'm frequently microdosing, psilocybin microdosing. And what I usually do is you know, follow Fadiman's protocol of microdosing one day and then 2 days off. I have considered experimenting with a full dose in carving, but you know, then thinking about trying to hit a razor sharp chisel with a wooden mallet while watching cascading geometrics or trying to figure out what the machine elves are telling me. It just didn't seem like it would work very well. I do on occasion, however, when I'm working on a carving project, especially when I get down to the detail, I take what I call a mini dose as opposed to a microdose. You know, a full dose, maybe 3 or 4 grams of dried mushrooms, and a microdose is maybe 1/3 of a gram. My mini doses might be 0.8 of a gram. So this is definitely beyond the subperceptible dosage. But you know, I think it really helps the carving experience for me. Certainly sharpens the focus on what I'm on. You know, I'm not becoming one with the piece, but I really appreciate the grain and the texture of the wood that I'm shaping. And you know, I think it sort of disengages my analytic left brain and lets me create finished detail so that it feels and looks right, not trying to match up with some measurements that I may have on a drawing. And I think a good example of that is something I finished recently. This guy. So, let's see, there we go. And I think in this piece especially, when I got down to the face here, I think the mushrooms really really helped me finish that off. I was real happy with the way this turned out, and allowed me to get in and do the detail and not get hung up on my drawings or anything like that. Another example is this piece, which is a figure I finished a month or two ago. And again, I think I was really interested in the flow of the figure and these lines, and especially the face. And again, I think the mushrooms probably gave me an assist on that. I really like the way the lines worked here and back, and also the face. I was having trouble with the face, and then got an assist from the mushrooms and finished it up one day, and I'm really pleased with the way that turned out. Now this wood here is Tupelo, and it's a terrific wood to work with. It has a medium hardness and a uniform grain, and it's usually this nice white color. And for your old timers out there, this is the same flowering Tupelo in that old Van Morrison song, Tupelo Honey. She's as sweet as Tupelo honey. That's the wood that I used here. There's one more piece that I want to share with you. Okay, so my daughter Drew, a few months ago, asked me to do a carving for her. So I said, of course, I'm thrilled. I'm glad you're interested in my art. And asked her what she'd like, and she said a mushroom. So, which had sort of surprised me. I thought it might have been a dog or I don't know what. But so I did have this nice block of maple that my dad had for years, and I was in the wood box. So I came up with an original design. I did this piece. So that's it. I'll use a couple different views of it. And as I said, this is a block of maple wood I had. And one thing about this maple that I just love, I don't know how well you can see it, but the grain I just love. This is polished up here, and it actually looks like marble, I think. And it sort of, actually it's weird, especially this right here. I polished that up, and it feels like marble, only soft. Sort of hard to describe. You actually have to feel it to get the sensation. But as you can see, I incorporated a couple types of mushrooms in here. Here's some oyster mushrooms hooked onto this piece of wood over here. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Steve, how hard is it to start with a piece of wood and then carve part of it to look like a piece of wood? It's pretty darn easy, actually. So we have a couple oyster mushrooms here, and then over here, of course, we have some cubensis, golden teacher, I believe. So that's my carving story. And
hey, thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
We're going to open it up for discussion now. Those are so fantastical, just fantastical too. I guess that's a word as well.
Fantastic. Oh,
it is now. And I love your process, and I love how you see what lives inside the wood before you start. Like, that's beautiful. And I think that the the human figures are very like influenced by Japanese mythology almost. They remind me of Miyazaki characters. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's an anime artist, but they're really, yeah, like beautiful. Yeah, beautiful.
Well, the face that on that one figure, the one that I was working for, I wanted a Asian look to that, so hopefully that came across. That's what I was going for.
It did. So one of the things that I really like about the really slender figure that you carved out of that block of wood, generally the blocks of wood, the base are very kind of square, and this one is, the fact that it's rough is just enormously appealing. And I think part of the appeal for that for me was seeing marble sculptures in Italy that were just breathtaking, and they were huge, of course, but they looked like they were emerging out of a piece of stone, and it was so mythological. And that particular figure has that same power and energy to it, because it's coming out of something just very rough and organic, and then turning into something just slender and graceful and beautiful. And yeah, that piece really worked for me. That part of it I really loved.
Yeah, that piece of wood that I inherited from my dad, did have the one end of it that was rough cut or still natural or something, and it just looked like it belonged to having a figure come up out of it. So yeah, I'm glad you appreciate that. Thanks.
So guys, if y'all have questions, you can either can folks unmute themselves?
Yes, they can.
Okay, awesome. So y'all can unmute yourselves and ask questions if your mic is broken, or if you feel more comfortable asking the questions in the chat, then please feel free to do that. And as those come in, I will read those out loud to Steve and everyone else.
Well, Steve, I just want to say I love your work. I just respond to it so much. I mean, particularly that you're the last feminine, the woman kind of that you were talking about that curves, and you worked on you were just
there's
I love that.
Thanks, Jane.
Really,
yeah, I really do too. That piece is based on there's this woman that works in stone in the UK, and she did a piece similar to that. And some of our other work, actually, that's I'm looking at that to get some ideas for another piece, because I really like it's a similar style of that she has. So yeah,
I just
thanks.
Also, just a practical question. I hear you got some wood from your dad.
Yeah.
How do you find your other wood? How do you?
Well, a lot of the pieces that you saw, had the sort of pedestal blocks. So there's, online you can get pre-cut wood, which is what I frequently do, especially since I don't have any power tools. I don't want to get a bandsaw or a table saw or anything and start cutting this down. So I get things that are in a block shape, and just like on the fox, cut away everything that's not fox, and you wind up with a piece.
Well, never having worked 3D, I'm just amazed, because I can see how you have your drawing that's a 2D, and you'd start cutting away, but the thing is, on 3D, you're cutting away all around, and I just can't see how it wouldn't just end up all lopsided. So I admire your ability.
Yeah, I got to take it slow sometimes, because you're right. Yeah. It is hard in 3D.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for sharing. I love it.
Sure, thanks for joining us.
So Alice was joining us and she had to leave, but she sent me a text rather than putting it in the chat room. So I'll just read what she had to say. She said, "Sorry, I had to leave. Amazing work, Steve. I love seeing your process and the different woods you're using. Your dad's workbench and tools must be an inspiration, along with the mushrooms.
Yep, dual inspirations, absolutely.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Your brother, Bill.
Hey, Bill.
So when the piece you were showing us is the mushrooms piece, very cool, like that a lot. You mentioned you polish it. So I don't know, I feel kind of dumb asking this, but polishing wood, that's not sandpaper. What are you, or is it?
Well, sort of. Let me see if I can go back to that. Are you seeing the piece there?
Yeah.
Back here where we were looking at the that's what I finish it with, and it's a variety of tools, like regular sandpaper. It might be 50 grit, whatever, grits per whatever. But this is another piece of sandpaper, but it's such fine grit that it actually feels like a cloth when you hold it. But it's still you can get the wood essentially polished. And these other things are sort of things in between. That's actually a sponge-like device, but it's you can rub on the wood, and it's a fine grit, and it'll polish it up as well.
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming that feels really smooth since it's polished when you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, I really like the piece of the woman. That's really, I'm not sure I've seen that before. Maybe you did show it to me, but seeing a nice close-up picture, it's amazing. Nice work.
Yeah, that's I finished it fairly recently. I don't think you been up here since then.
So as you can probably tell, hi Bob, I can see you in there with Jane.
He wants to ask Steve a question.
Okay,
So,
go ahead, Bob.
Steve, you work on these pieces a long time, and I was wondering, do you name them? Do you have like do you title them or name them or anything like that?
Well, that first piece, you remember the face being held by a hand?
Yeah.
Actually, Peggy named that Dopo, right?
Yes, which is Italian for later, because Steve is such a procrastinator. And it's like,
so,
maybe later.
Yeah, maybe later. Not names for all the other pieces yet. I'm working on that, though. Good question, Bob.
So I think, does anybody else have any last minute questions? If not, we'll move on to hear from Chris. Any last minute questions, anyone? Okay, well then thank you so much, Steve. I just love you did a really good job on the photographs too. I want to say that was really nice, and I liked
Thanks.
that you added in the photographs of your tools and your sandpaper. Nice touch.
Thank you.
So, so Chris, looking forward to hearing about your art. So why don't you start by introducing yourself and where you're from, and then tell us about your art.
Okay, thank you. I'm Chris. I make art and music and a numerous of other things under Polygon Rainbow. And I'm in Portland. I've been in Oregon for about 7 years now, and I moved to Portland about a year ago, a little more than that. And it's been great for my artistic growth and development. The arts community here in Portland is booming, and it felt like there was plenty of space for me in it as well. And I've just been thriving. At this point, I am a full-time artist, and so I work, generally like 6 to 8 hours a day on some sort of project. I balance a lot of different mediums and disciplines, and so just whatever's catching my attention that day is what I end up working on. And then Portland's been pretty supportive of that. I'll take a second real quick to say that, Steve, that was all really amazing. I really admire people who work in a 3D space, and yeah, every single one of those was moving, to say the least, and just like amazing all the way across. That being said, I have some paintings and I guess a couple of digital pieces that are in various states of completion to share with you guys. And so I guess I'll start with the paintings first because they're handy and I can just hold them in front of the phone for now. So we'll start with one of my styles that I use like masking tape and spray paint a lot to do the style of, like, I feel that it's just my best way to get really smooth gradients, and so I really like it. And I often do a lot of like color theory play and doing like art kind of stuff. And so there's like 2 layers of colored paint on this, a gradient going from pink to green one direction and a gradient going from pink to green the other direction on a different layer. And I have a couple examples of that right here. And so this is one using kind of the same technique and then finishing it with another style that I really like to play with that I don't have too terribly much around me right now because I've been swaying away from it a little bit. But as you can see, it has the 2-layer gradient effect again with like the orange to purple going one direction and then taped and cut and masked off, and then an orange to purple gradient going the other direction to create this like transitional effect. And I really enjoy like light effects, and so I have like black lights and color changing lights that I often use in my creative process to just, add a layer of dimensionality that I seem to maybe struggle with my hands to add a lot of dimension. So a lot of my paintings are kind of flat on the surface. So I kind of use other means to add like layer and depth to it that may not be, like 3-dimensional depth as we perceive it, And so here's another kind of same idea. This is a work in progress. I'm going to fill the middle space, with like a doorway of sorts. And so this one is probably my favorite in color changing lights. If I had one handy, I would show you guys the effect that it gives. But the way that as the light shifts, the gradient changes, the way that you look at it, it has a really psychedelic effect, to say the least. And then, so here's a more kind of like less abstract and more kind of like intentional piece. And so like telling a story with my art is a newer concept to me. And so this is an earlier one. And so the main concept of this, I mean, if the medicine wheel is apparent, but the like happy and sad face, and like it's hard to see, but this is like a space scene in the third eye space of the happy face, and then this is like a piece of turquoise in the sad face, and it basically to me represents whenever you are focused on like material concepts material things. It brings about suffering. And whenever you think about the more like infinite, like cosmos and our place in the universe, kind of conceptually, it brings about more like a state of peace. And then so I've incorporated like some glyphs that I've started, like I made up a written language. It's basically just like a direct translation from English. There's just a character for A, a character for B. And so this is a mantra, I guess, that is recurring in my life, that is as in one, so in all, and which is like my summary of a longer quote that's as in one atom, so in all atoms, all worlds enter therein, which is kind of the same as above, so below. Like my experience is, like we're all experiencing this together, and so it helps me remember to see other people as a reflection of myself, and know that, the things that I've experienced in my life, it's, very likely that other people have experienced the same things, where like, maybe one person has experienced like a loss of a family member and another person hasn't. But we both have experienced sadness. Like the range of human emotion is only like so much. And so I'm fairly certain that we've all experienced all of the emotions. And so, that helps me find peace and, relation in my fellow humans. And it makes, it easier to not be mad and frustrated at people who don't perceive life the same way that I do, So that's like some of my paintings that I have around. I guess I can show you a couple of like the more like abstract, like spatula. This is like the work in progress that I'm working on right now. And so if you get in like closer, you can see I do like a lot of like taping things off and then painting it with a spatula and doing, kind of like color theory concepts. Here's another one right here. And so I just do a lot of like color theory and playing with the spatula, because a lot of my art process is experimentation. A lot of my life really, and as a whole, is experimentation. A lot of like, I wonder what happens if I do this, and that's how I, learn my lessons. A lot of them the hard way sometimes, because, that's just who I am. And then, others not so hard. So lately I've been painting a lot less, because a lot of my painting used to be social. I was an event like live painter, and so most of my time painting would be whenever I was like out at shows and painting with my friends, because I feed off of that sort of like collaborative energy, or that just like energy of others around, and that helps me, especially with painting. And that's sort of, well, in relation to other things, it's not anymore, but painting is one of the newer art forms that I've dove into, and so I'm not quite as confident with painting as I could be, and as I am with what I'm about to show you now, digital art. As I've been for the last year dabbling in it a little bit more, and then as like a quarantine project, I got a new software called Cinema 4D, and decided like this was going to be my quarantine project to learn this software, and it's my favorite thing that I've ever done. It allows for such, like, it's rewards experimentation more than almost anything that I've done before. And so prior to Cinema 4D, I had done a couple pieces, and then like another 3D program. This is a print of one of my digital pieces right here. And it's using another 3D software that I had like played with a little bit. But like the models that I use are sourced from the internet. And so it's kind of like a collaging of like 3D models that I found on the internet, and then changing the materials on them to fit my like color palettes, and then using that in Photoshop in combination to just make these compositions, you know. So then I'll try to get this to where you guys can see it as best as possible. So these are some of my newer pieces. I'll start a little bit older and move to like my newest ones. So this is probably one of the first ones that, we'll see how long this takes. It might be slow to load, in which case I'll find another way to show you. Okay, so we'll just do it by chance, and I set all of these as backgrounds so I can just go through the backgrounds one at a time with you. So this was one of the first ones that I did, of just following a tutorial and then, you know, branching off of it whenever I kind of got the hang of the tool that the tutorial was teaching me to use, which has definitely been a recurring thing throughout the quarantine. Is I'll look up a tutorial, find a new idea or a way to use the tools within Cinema 4D to do something, and then I will stop, you know, just divvy from the tutorial and start just like experimenting and doing things on my own. So this is another one of the early ones, and this was one of the first ones that like captured my fascination with like glass or transparent materials within like 3D models, and how computers process light refraction and things like that, which has like become one of my favorite things about it probably. So I'll go through these like kind of fast and talk about each one. This is a relatively newer one that I did in tribute to the artist that's kind of like the reason why I started painting. His name is Jake Amazon, and I was at a music festival and everybody was really tired from the night before, and I was still wide awake, and so was he, and so I hung out painting with him all night, and it just inspired me to start painting. And so I got home from that festival and started painting, and I've been doing it ever since. This is before I started playing with Cinema 4D, one of my older ones. And you know, it's the brain, and you know, the maze that our brain is, and whenever you know, find the center of your brain, the center of your being, the center of your essence, the center of the maze, you know, like that's where you find peace. And finding peace in a relatively chaotic environment is one of my recurring themes. Just like the chaos, and you know, in the like Buddhist philosophy, it's just always been there, and it's always going to be there. The world's in a perpetual state of like decay and regrowth, and so, you know, that kind of is where I find peace in that, you know. So this is an older one of the first ones that I've done that I don't feel has aged as well as some of these. This is an older one that's kind of a composite of Photoshop and Cinema 4D when I first started playing with it. This is one of my favorites that I've done. It's a little bit zoomed in, so it's like a whole swoop, but it's just like that fluidity and the fluid dynamics, and you know, it kind of looks like a swatch of paint with a spatula, and also, you know, like water. This is one that I did recently, using a page from Be Here Now to create just like my interpretation of what I was reading on that page at the time, you know. This is one that I've been working on over the last couple of days. It's actually a video. I'm starting to get into like motion graphics. My computer doesn't like it but I'm gonna do it anyway. So that's a video. Maybe I'll show you on my other computer in just a second. This is a relatively newer one. As you can see, I really love pastel-y colors a lot. That's my, like, I barely use primary red, hardly ever. I almost always use like a pastel color palette. Here's another variation or render of that piece that I showed you earlier. I often do like several different renders once I create a space. I showed you guys that in print format. So this is actually, I'll show you in a second. I designed clothes. Oh, I think I don't have some here. That's my first self-portrait that I did. If that helps see what's, you know, going on in my brain at any given moment. It's a lot of just color and chaos, but it's, you know, you can see I have a tranquil face. It's just, I'm finding peace in all of that noise, and it's present in my music as well. I don't know if I expressed that I make music as well, but noise and textures and saturation are all pretty present in most of my forms of art. Yes, this is another render of one of the pieces you saw a second ago. I done clothes, and so I do a lot of things like front and back in mind, so that it doesn't have the same design on front and back that you all over clothing. I'm close to my most recent one, which is probably my favorite to date, and then I'll move away from showing you guys all of my. It's like mad at me for making it do stuff.
And I have just a quick, this is amazing. The audio is a little bit choppy, and I think when you do talk, if you can like put your mouth towards your phone, it might be a little less choppy, but we are hearing what you're saying.
Okay, I can definitely do that, sorry. So yeah, this one, it'll probably move from it in a second, but this one is a piece that I was designing for someone's brand, and then they kind of did out on me working with them anymore, so now it's just a piece that I have going around. This is the one I was talking about. It's probably my favorite that I've done to date, just like the layers of just like abstract and organic and the color palette and the perspective and layering, just like compositionally. I just feel like this is one of the best pieces that I've done yet. This one is another one of playing with just transparent materials and how they reflect and refract the light around them. Every one of these pieces is me learning. You know, I think that's important. It's always be learning as you create. Yeah, so I think we're back to one of the first ones that I did. And so, you know, a lot of this is just using really simple models and simple forms, cubes and platonics and spheres, and just playing with texture mapping and within those. And it's just really fun and rewarding to play with. And so here, I'll set this down for a second. And am I upside down?
You are. That's better.
Okay. Yeah, so here are some of my clothes. I have a couple around of my own. Hoodie, this is one of my hoodies. And so the front is using one of my older like Photoshop before I started playing a lot in 3D designs. And then the back is one of my earlier 3D pieces where I use the model. And so it's really the color is what drives it for me. I'm really into color. And so here's another hoodie that's a more recent one. Um, Again, rainbows, that's my life. And that's why it's in my name, which actually came a long time ago before I ever started playing with visual art at all. I was a musician first, and that was my music moniker. Otherwise, I probably would just use my name to make visual art. But since I was already a brand, I decided to keep it. So here's a dress, also from older like 2D collage designs in Photoshop. So this is my partner, and we just keep it colorful in our house. And I would think that the psychedelic influence um, is apparent, but psychedelics have not only just influenced my creative process but my life as a whole. And it was through a lot of ups and downs, I would say, for probably the first half, like 5 years of psychedelic usage. I was probably abusing them and just doing them recreationally and for fun. And then I had a couple experiences that were real eye openers, and they have shifted my perspective of them into the like healing nature that they have and the teaching nature that they have. So my usage of them has diminished quite a bit. As far as frequency, which I use them. So I only do psychedelics a couple of times a year, but I usually do a relatively heavy dosage when I do, because it really humbles me to have those heavy dosages, and I feel like that's the what I use psychedelics for at this point. So they're more influential in my being as a whole and why I make art, and than they are in my process itself. I find it, because I do heavier doses, I find it difficult to engage in something with the like technical eye and the attention to detail that I like to have whenever I'm being creative. And so um, they have been monumental in shifting my perspective and making me the person that I am. And they also, um, that time whenever I do have an experience, I use that as a way to kind of like assess where I'm at in my art career. So I listen to music that I've made since the last time I, look at what paintings or what art I have around, and it mostly is, just like kind of rewarding myself and making me feel as though I'm getting to the level that I want to be at as an artist, and then there's always room for growth, and that's why I'm so spread out between music and digital art, and very like multiple forms of digital art as well as painting. And if I had a space for a woodworking studio, I'd be doing that. If I had more things, I'd be doing more things. It's just who I am at this point is I just love doing things with my hands and my brain, and that's what keeps me sane and happy and moving. So my space is really small. I live in a like small 1-bedroom apartment up here, and so like my painting, like all my art supplies are like over here. This is like my painting space. It gets piled up because I haven't been using it quite as frequently anymore. Um, and as you can see, there's a color storm like everywhere in my house all the time. This is where I make music and make digital art. Maybe I can show you. this video real quick before I stop doing the show and tell. Yeah, so this is the video version of that still piece that I showed you a second ago. And I think with that, I will open it back to you guys for questions or whatever you guys want.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. That was amazing. I've never really seen anything quite like that before, especially that last thing you just showed us of the, like, a moving painting. I mean, that was just really incredible. So I also want to say that if people would like to see more of Chris's work, it's posted on the Meetup, the link to his Instagram, and there's just some amazing stuff in there. And one of the things that I saw, and I talked to Chris about this the other day, I really love his incorporation of photography and painting. And there's some really nice examples of that on his Instagram if people want to explore that a little bit further. But thanks for sharing all this with us. It's just so so amazing to see what you're doing and what your process is, Chris.
A couple of questions for you. I love that, like, you're talking about live painting, and then I also loved how you were talking about finding peace through your process. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about possibly, like, I know I use creative processes to help me integrate the experiences that I've had with psychedelics. I was wondering if you did the same. It sounds like you possibly do, and what you did with that to help you, or how that might help you if creative processes did help you do that.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand your question. With how psychedelics directly influence my my creative process, and so I do oftentimes take like conceptual things, and this is all part of my human experience, my psychedelic experience, and so I take concepts that I've been contemplating on and find some way to translate those into like a visual medium. They say that art is like, it knows no language barriers, and so and that, I guess, that touches into like the reason, a lot of the reason why I create is to create that like separable moment where people disengage from everything else and engage with that present moment and that art and whatever they're experiencing whenever they see it. And I utilize that as a way to extend that moment and make it bigger, and so we can have a like more intimate conversation about things that are relative, or helping us heal, or sharing our experience with others to gain perspective through it all. I hope that answered your question. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that was and have one more question, and then I'm going to let everyone else ask questions too. But I love the dichotomy in your work. There's like this tension between structure and fluidity in a lot of it, and there's a lot of ancient geometry, and then it looks like these organic alien landscapes. So I was wondering specifically what psychedelics have influenced your work, because I know like your paintings and your work looks very similar to folks who have been influenced by DMT. And I was wondering specifically what psychedelics have influenced your work the most.
I would say probably like the just like depth of layering and detail in the DMT experience has definitely been largely influential. And probably the color palette as well. I feel like DMT's color palette is a little softer than some of the others. But honestly, like DMT, LSD, and mushrooms have all played a pretty big role in my experience at some point. I feel like as far as like creativity, psilocybin seems to be the most like creatively stoking, you know. So if I don't do it much anymore because I have a partner now, but whenever I would like solo trip on mushrooms, I couldn't not paint, you know. Like it was just so like you have to do something, paint. Whereas with I feel like LSD is a much more like observational high, and then a functioning one for me personally. And so like I find it hard to keep my mind centered on one thing long enough to like work on something, you know. And again, you know, this is because I do often like larger doses of things, you know. So it, like to not to the point of like incapacitation, but to the point of like laziness and procrastination, you know. It's like, I feel great, I can do this any other time besides right now, you know. And what I can't do is listen to music under this influence state, you know, because the like time distortion and the perception distortion that you get with hallucinogens, you know, allows you to again expand that moment and, you know, see things that you wouldn't have otherwise even noticed, you know. And so yeah, DMT has been, LSD's been largely influential, and mushrooms are definitely my like creative go-to if I do want to like add some. Anybody else have any questions?
I don't have any questions per se, but I did want to just kind of express, I thought that each of your mediums are, you know, they're similar, but they're so vastly different when it comes to even just like the viewer experiencing them versus probably the process of making them for you. And I found that they're just like, entrancing is one of the words that kind of popped up in the chat, and that's totally how I felt too. They really pull you in, and with your digital work, there's so much to look at, there's so much to get lost in. And I really appreciate, you know, art that kind of takes you on a journey itself. And I really like how you took and expanded on your digital art and made textiles, a wearable out of it. It's like, what a great way to take that visual art, because there's so many different ways to apply it and to use it and to be a moving canvas. So that was pretty brilliant. And I just wanted to say, keep it up. Welcome to Portland. It's got a great community. And, you know, I hope to see more of your artwork around.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I just want to say ditto on that. And I loved seeing you transform your art into the textiles and the clothing. It was amazing, beautiful. I don't know how you did that, but you know, they're really lovely, I think.
It was definitely a game changer for me when I realized the ease of having it done. So I use like a third party like drop shipping host that they print stuff on demand, so somebody can like order it from my website and I don't have to have a box of them at my house to mail to people. Somebody prints them like one off at a time. And so whenever I found out about that and how easy that was to get done, I hopped on it immediately. And so I'd be happy to share that with any other artists that are unfamiliar with how easy it is to get things translated to textiles and sell them to people that you love, or buy them yourself, you know, as I've done. But the way that it translates into it is like mind-blowing. We will sit here and just stretch the fabric apart and watch how far the colors and details are like embedded into it, you know. And so I'm a huge fan of the textile translation as well, for sure.
Well, Chris, I wanted to thank you too, that I especially love the textile. And also, I loved your self-portrait too. It's a treat to peek what's going on inside your head there.
Thank you so much, Steve. And thank all of you guys, really. Thanks for having me. Thanks for allowing me to talk. And it was great to see Steve and his art and his process as well. And it's inspiring for me to just like continue. I can't wait to make these scenes in a 3D, like actual 3D format. I've really been dying to like play with clay or wood or some sort of medium. And whenever I expand my space, I'll definitely be diving into that as well.
Well, I want to say thank you to both of you, Chris and Steve, for sharing your art and the psychedelic influence on your art. Really appreciate it. So we have these meetings every month, and so we'll be having one coming up in September. And anyone who would be interested in being a guest artist, we would love to hear from you. And we like to have an eclectic mix so that we've got, you know, music and carving and dance and writing, poetry, whatever. You know, it's all artistic expression, and it's all very interesting. So please contact either Holly or myself if you have any interest, or if you want to just do a shout out right now and tell us you'd be interested in participating in an upcoming artist salon.
I have a quick point of clarification. A question: is it always the third Friday of the month, or does it move around?
Always the third Friday. So our next one will be September 18th. I will talk to that. I also put I put Peggy and put Peggy's email, my email, and my cell number in the chat. So if you are interested, you can get in touch with us that way. And like Peggy said, pipe up now if you're interested as well. I'm going to type the date for our next meeting in the chat as well.
Yeah, Kazzrie, it is the third Friday of the month. Is the third Friday the 18th, Holly? Wow, that seems so early, but okay. So the 18th of September is our next one. And, you know, even if you yourself are not wanting to present your art, if you know an artist whose work you'd like to see, or if you have a friend who you think would be interested in participating that doesn't know about us, feel free to pass our information along. And then one last little heads up, if anybody wants to donate, you can go to our website and hit donate now and make a contribution. And although we're 100% a volunteer organization and we're nonprofit, we do have expenses to keep ourselves going, insurance and blah, 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 other junk. So anyway, any donation is appreciated. So with that, are there any last minute questions or comments anyone has? All right, then I think it's a wrap. Okay. Thanks everybody for being here. It was really wonderful to see you all.
Thank you.
We'll see you there.
Thank you. I hope you all have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.